mushroom, I tell you what I'd do. I would take that mushroom and split it in two. Oh, if I had a mushroom, I'd tell you what I'd do. I would take that mushroom, and I hope that you would too. The sky would look all cloudy, it'd be making shapes and such. We'd be dreaming about the future, and we both know that ain't much. Oh, and if I had a mushroom, I'd split it with you. I would take that mushroom and give the other half to you. We could hang a hammock between us.
Okay.
Rolling.
My name is Mike Decter, and I'm here to talk about mushrooms and foraging. I actually work for the Forest Service with the Coconino National Forest, and I'm with the Arizona Mushroom Society, which is a nonprofit organization. So I kind of got into mushrooms from a weird way. I was a biologist previously. I got an ecology degree in college, and it kind of blew my mind that I didn't know anything about this. I mean, I know all the tree species, I know all the plant species, I know the bird species. I don't know any of the fungi species at all. So from that point on, I'm like, I got to figure this out. I got to know what mushrooms are all about, and that's the journey I've been on. So this looks like it's a limber pine cone, which is kind of rare here in our forest, and it has dozens of little tiny mushrooms in there. And this mushroom specifically grows on this species of pine cone. You don't find it in ponderosa pine cones, you don't find it in Douglas fir cones. And so this is a species-specific fungi that basically associates with this type of tree. And so it really shows you how in our forest, everything is kind of connected to each other. They all have these relationships to each other, which we really don't know much about. So one of the really cool things about being involved in mycology right now is that we're at this unique age where we've had some recent advances in technology. We can easily share information about what species we find, take pictures of them, do microscopy work, look at the spores, and share that information and document that super easily. And so amateur mycology clubs like the Arizona Mushroom Society, we can go out and we can collect samples, and we have a scientific committee chair. Her name is Terry Clements, and she'll work with labs to send that information to get DNA sequenced, and then she'll take that DNA data and she'll compare it to all the other sequenced mushrooms out there. And that gives us a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with. So we no longer have to say, oh, this mushroom looks like that one from Europe, it must be the same thing. Now we can say, actually, we have our own unique mycoflora here, and then share that information with all the other amateur mycologists out there, so we're all speaking the same language. Those two things have really changed the game and helped us figure out what the cryptic kingdom is all about, what these mushrooms are, and basically tells us a lot more than we've ever been able to know before. So this black, what looks like kind of like a burnt piece of charcoal, is actually a fungi called cramp balls or King Alfred cakes, Daldinia concentrica. There, if you look really closely, you can see it. And people used to put it in their hand and use it like embers to keep their hands warm in Europe in the olden days. It's actually a really good fire starter. This is what looks to be a Ganoderma applanatum, or an artist conch fungi, and it grows at the base of dead aspen trees or on downed aspen trees. It's called an artist conch, and I'm just gonna take a liberty here because you can pull this up and you can see the bottom stains brown. This is just from my fingertips. If I take a branch and I write, something like, whoops, this will stay forever. It should sporulate all at once, so I'm gonna try it, okay? So I'm gonna blow on it and then wait like a full 2 seconds, and then if it's gonna sporulate, it will. Ready?
Wow.
But the best two places to go for looking for mushrooms in Arizona is either our ponderosa pine forest or the higher elevation forest. Arizona has one of the biggest contiguous ponderosa pine forests in the world. You could often find oyster mushrooms, the king bolete, you get all sorts of coral mushrooms, which are really fun to find. And then, if you have fires in the spring, sometimes you find morel mushrooms in those areas as well. So Brighton just pulled this out of the ground, and when she turned it over right away, I knew what it was because look at those bright yellow gills on there. This is actually what we call a gilled bolete. So boletes have pores. This is the only species of bolete that actually has gills. And so this is an edible mushroom. We find it only in these high elevation mixed conifer forests. Cool find, a good edible for sure. All right, so this fungi is one of the few large mushrooms that we found in this late season, and it has these broad white gills. And you could see the stringiness of the stem. If I try to tear it, it's not easy. It's very kind of durable. And so all this information and its habitat, the fact that it's growing in down dead aspen wood, tells me it's a Megacolybia phalanx. It's a little too stringy and chewy to eat.
My name's Hunter Richardson. I'm a tattoo artist in Sacred Ground in Flagstaff, Arizona. As far as my mushroom experience goes, I'm quite amateur, very new to everything. What started it all was The Fantastic World of Fungi. It was a documentary on Netflix, and it really sparked my curiosity, my imagination for all of the different uses that we could have for this ancient network of just beings that are ultimately so huge and yet so small, and the natural benefits not only for your just edible mushrooms, medicinal ones, but also the effects on like any of your psychedelic ones too, the amount of power it has on able to change the brain and reroute networks. The Viking mushrooms, the ones that you always see that are red and then you have the white dots all over them, yes. If you eat them, it has the same effect. I mean, they're definitely psychoactive, but there's another chemical in there that makes it very, well, that makes it culturally inedible. Okay. Because it'll make you it will make you hallucinate, but it'll also kind of put you in a berserk panic. That's why it's the Viking mushroom. Like, a lot of people have died from eating it, but there's a way that you can turn it into a wine. And then it'll give you the really like fun, wavy feeling of a body high for anything like that. Tons of stuff. Down here with all the spruce and pine, or just ponderosa and pine, you're gonna find a lot more lobster mushrooms. And because we do have a larger concentration of cattle in this area, and cattle pies, manure, there should be a larger concentration of dung-loving mushrooms. That includes a lot of your psychoactive ones, and there's quite a few that are not psychoactive and actually can be deadly. There is one species, also known as the death agaric. It's pretty white. Usually you can tell because it'll have a stipe on the stem or a ring, but if you eat that particular species of mushroom, you will die within 15 minutes. Really beautiful reds. See this little family? Looks like a bunch of little red tomatoes all together. My setup at home, I have what's called a monotub, and I'm able to control all the atmospheric pressures, and it gives me the absolute perfect conditions to grow any form of mushroom or fungi I want. With mushroom hunting, you spend a lot more time actually looking around and seeing what's around you, nature and all that. Makes you take a step back and really slow down and see all the tiny but infinitely large lives.
On the tree of life, they actually split off closer to people than they do to animal or to plants. And you know, plants, if you think about it, they make their own food from sun and photosynthesis. But we're more like mushrooms in the fact that we're moochers. You know, we have to find food and eat it to get nutrition in us. The only big difference between us and mushrooms is we put food in us, mushrooms put themselves in their food. And so just like this little guy right here, this is just the fruiting body. All its mycelium are eating the tree. It put itself in its food and it's digesting this tree, and then it's trying to reproduce right there by creating a little new fungi, and I believe this little puffball.
Fungi are closer related to us than they are plants, and as such, they actually, through their respiration, they produce carbon dioxide, and they inhale oxygen, so much like animals and very different from plants.
It's all here to be eaten, so feel free to use it. So we're just kind of doing a little snack from like stuff that grows wild around here for the most part. What's the thing to do here is grab a cracker, a little cheese, a leaf or two, and then some of this on top, and it's just like a nice little yummy snack.
All right, so we have a large assortment of mainly unknown mushrooms, a lot of cool colors. These guys are a little sticky. We weren't able to find any of our targeted species today, but hey, that's okay. That's the fun of it. You get to see so many more cool colors and species, and you just learn, because I bet you half of these, once we're done identifying them, might be able to eat a couple.
Scientists estimate that there's between 1.5 million to 5 million different fungi species, and we only know like 1 million or less, you know, in the hundreds of thousands, and so we're just kind of starting on this journey.
I myself have just barely gotten into the entire thing, so I have so much more to learn and to cook and see what all it has.
What do I have to do?
Just pick them up, brush them off.
I was just
Just
looking
the
at my
tops.
You don't
You want to see
don't
something
have
that's
to.
uber cool? All right, so this is 2 mushrooms, right?